Hello, Fairfax County Public Schools. This is Dr. Brabrand, Superintendent. Thank you for tuning in this evening. We have a wonderful town hall for you tonight to listen to you. We know we have a topic tonight around TJ admissions that is of considerable interest to our entire community, to our students, our teachers, our parents. And I'm glad to have you tune in. For the next hour, we're going to listen to hear your perspectives and share a little bit about our TJ admissions proposal that I shared with the school board just last week. I also want you to know before we begin that we've listened to you through over 1,000 comments already received. I'm going to be doing additional town halls with school board members in the days ahead. And we have a school board work session next week before I present a final presentation to the board in 2 weeks. So we're glad to have you here this evening. I do want to remind everyone why we're here at this point in time. This is a true moment in the history of Fairfax County Public Schools. We faced together a global pandemic. We've seen the rise, the necessary rise of a social justice movement for us to look more carefully at equity in all that we do here in Fairfax County Public Schools. And we faced a moment for us to look inside ourselves and our operations, to look at the impacts that our programs and policies have on all of our students and families. I do want you to know, too, this is not just a conversation happening in Fairfax County. It's happening across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Governor Northam and his team, Secretary of Education Carney, have asked us, have challenged us, and have, through statutory requirements, required all governor schools in Virginia by mid-October to submit a plan around how to improve diversity in admissions at governor schools throughout the state. We are all working through this together. I want you to know that we're going to have a few folks with us tonight. First of all, we're going to have our Director of Equity and Family Engagement, Leona Smith-Vance. Thank you, Leona, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we look forward to hearing from you a little bit later as we hear from our panelists. So thank you for coming. And we're going to have Jeremy Schugert with us, our Director for TJ Admissions Office. Jeremy, I know you have a very, very challenging job. And before we begin on admissions, one thing that I know you share with me just beforehand, as we talk about removing the TJ admissions test, over 1,000 colleges already across the country are walking away from standardized admissions and coming up with a more holistic approach. It's great to have you here this evening, Jeremy, and I'd love for you to have an opportunity to share with us a little bit about where we are in Fairfax County around TJ admissions and how we've tried to approach the TJ admissions process by leading with equity at the center of all that we do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott, and I'm glad to be here. One of the things that we were looking at, and I reflect back on some of the information that we shared at last week's school board work session, is leading with equity at the center. Dr. Brabrand talked about the annual year governor schools reports. This was due to, or is due to, the governor in mid-October. There was also a task force that Secretary of Education Lateef Carney held over the summer. And ultimately, the governor is going to make some recommendations to all of the governor schools in terms of admissions process.
So, Jeremy, in one sense here in Fairfax County, we're trying to be proactive and really look at a Fairfax solution for our Fairfax County students. And we want to certainly hear what the governor and the state task force has, but we're also trying to be proactive and really look at our own processes as we're approaching TJ admissions.
Absolutely. And I think that actually was shared with the school board as well as the community if they took a chance to look at some of the charts that we had shared. We really were looking at over 15 years worth of data. And that's what kind of drew us to the place in which we are today. We've made a lot of changes, and if you can go to the next slide, you can actually see over the past 10 years how many different changes. What we've done is we've made changes here and there, trying to improve that process, trying to make changes that were more reflective and provide more opportunities for students. And yet what we've seen has really not resulted in positive change. We really haven't made significant impacts in the areas in which we wanted to do. And so, that leads us to where we are today. And at this point in time, there's questions about why are we doing this now? Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, it's why not now? We've been making changes for 10 years and we haven't got to where we want to be. And so this is an opportunity for us to make a different change, go in a different direction.
Right. You know, Jeremy, if we can go back to that earlier slide that you had just put up, which I know you got to some of the beginning, but you made a couple of points early on, but also some points I think we need to share this evening. It's clear that Thomas Jefferson does not reflect the diversity of FCPS, our community, or of Northern Virginia. And it doesn't, more importantly, reflect the talent pool that already exists across all of our students. Not the economic diversity that is out there that has merit and talent, not the geographic diversity, and not the racial ethnic diversity. We are missing talent, and we need to get into the talent spotting process, the talent development process, and not have a process that screens talent out, that screens merit out. And standardized testing has and continues, and we've got years of data that Jeremy has to show where the talent is screened out as we administer that standardized test. We know this work really aligns with our One Fairfax initiative to really put that social equity lens across all that we do, and that this is just one part of a three-pronged approach. We're looking at admissions, but we know we need to grow the pipeline, and we also know we need to provide enhanced support for our students. Leon, I just want to ask you a minute about enhancing that pipeline for students and getting them excited.
Sure.
What are some of the things we are doing and that we need to do to help really get kids excited about wanting to apply to TJ?
Well, I know that I've been working with, as the Director of Equity and Family Engagement, I also get to support Title I schools. One of the great things we do in working in collaboration with Jeremy and the admissions office and the foundation is a lot of outreach in our elementary schools, doing STEM projects, taking field trips to different labs across Howes and UVA to really think about how we're doing STEM education. We know that this is one piece of the puzzle. This is a marathon, and we have to start somewhere. There is a starting place for all of this work. And something you both said really resonated with me is that how we define educational equity is when we can no longer predict the outcome of success by someone's identity. And this process creates predictable outcomes. So we have to hold on to that as we talk today.
That's great. And we really need to get to listening to our folks today. I do want to show a little bit around our proposal in case folks haven't, or you're just tuning in and haven't learned about the proposal or maybe just heard a few elements. Jeremy, can you walk us through what the proposed process is and talk a little bit about how we're going to enhance our admissions process through this proposal?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're changing is obviously we're making some changes to the front end, which is the application portion or the test portion of the process. We're removing the admissions exams, but we are keeping a few things that have always been there. We're keeping the minimum requirement of Algebra 1. We're raising or increasing the GPA to 3.5 for a core academic area. Obviously, we still need our students to be residents within Fairfax or any of our participating jurisdictions in Northern Virginia. But the piece that I think that we've heard through the community from the feedback is that, what is the other pieces of merit? And some of the things that we need to share and I think do a better job of sharing is what we're doing with the questionnaire and the problem-solving essay. There is still information that's going to be pulled together. These students are going to be provided an opportunity through what we call our student information sheet, which is the questionnaire. And we're really looking at some of those ideals around our portrait of a graduate, 21st century skills. It's the critical thinking, the problem-solving ability that these students are going to have to demonstrate while they're at TJ. We are not lowering the standards of the education in TJ. We're not taking anything away. We're keeping that same level of academic integrity at the school, and we're measuring this through that merit process. Once they finish that, that's when we're going to place students based upon their geography in a specific pathway. And that's where we'll have the randomized selection of those students in those pathways.
So Jeremy, to really, in short, say the proposal eliminates the testing fee, which I think has been $100, a barrier in and of itself. It eliminates the test, the history of standardized tests having bias against certain students who really get squeezed out in the testing game. But we're enhancing the process, lifting the GPA to a 3.5, creating and enhancing the problem-solving essay that we've always had in questionnaire to really get at merit, to really get at Portrait of a Graduate, to really get at what we want to see in students in science, technology, engineering, and math. And it is interesting to me as we look at this world right now, we're all facing COVID-19. Are the answers found based on your ability to answer a standardized test of A, B, C, D, or E? And we're in a moment now where we need all of these merit qualities of collaborators, communicators, creative thinkers, ethical people who are going to be our future scientists, our mathematicians, our engineers, and to be leaders and problem solvers. And we have a lot of problems in our world right now, and we need kids to really come around and develop those skills more than ever before. Let's go ahead now and take some questions. We've had a few minutes to explain our proposal and why we're here tonight. Now let's take some questions. First, have you considered an outreach program for students from each school to apply for TJ? Jeremy, can you talk a little bit about what outreach we have done and what more that we could do?
Sure. So traditionally, one of the things that we do is we work with what we call liaison counselors at all of the participating schools in the area, both public and private across Northern Virginia in those school divisions, or in our participating school divisions. And each fall, we actually visit every school in Fairfax County, provide an admissions presentation sharing information about the school, information about the admissions process, and some helpful hints and kind of ideas of what to do to get prepared. The other piece that we pull into is that we consistently send out other information. So there's email information that goes out that goes to those counselors to be able to share information. Like Leona mentioned earlier, we also provide some of that information at the middle school level. It's not just at the elementary school level. And so we're in all of our jurisdictions, certainly during the application cycle. But in addition to that, in the spring, we go back out, particularly to our schools that tend to have less representation at TJ. And we present information. We share information about what TJ is about. What's STEM? Why would you be excited to go to a school? Really, the idea is to provide students with an opportunity to understand what TJ is. And that certainly is where we're at there.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's take a phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi there. I'm calling in with 2 points that I'll try to do quickly. The first is that current students at TJ have shared on social media that they received some of the exact questions that have appeared on their Quant Q test during test prep at Curie Academy, which charges about $4,000 or $5,000 for a test class. And I hope you'll look into this and consider how that creates a pay-to-play system more than a meritocratic system. And then second, I want to emphasize how much support this proposal has in the alumni community. This summer, a majority of the class of 2008 signed a letter calling for even more substantial reform than this proposal. And I know Mr. Schuchart received a copy of that letter. And there's nothing special about the class of 2008. If a group from 2004 or 2012 had circulated that letter, it would have gotten strong majority support too. And I hope that you guys will really strongly consider the opinion of alumni on this proposal, because school is for students more than it's for parents. Thank you.
Well, thank you, caller. We certainly want to listen to all of our community around the TJ issue. And it's very important that you raise the issue about test prep and access to test prep. This is another great inequity. We are actually hearing reports that some families spend anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 a year on test prep. This is not the way to find talent, to spot talent, and to develop talent. We shouldn't be putting our students through, or our families through, a process where that kind of money for test prep has to be done. There has to be a better way, and we are proposing a better way in this TJ admissions process. So thank you, caller. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Thanks for taking my call. I'm definitely opposed to the proposed change, only because, the slide that you had put up earlier, there have been changes made since 2011, starting from changing the test, adjusting the sliding scale, proctoring the SIS, but there was only one that was done to really improve the pipeline, which was creating the outreach position. Again, that was, I believe was cut because of the budget issues. So we have been trying to do this for, FCPS has been trying to do this for 10 years of tweaking the admissions process, and here again we are, right? Earlier, I believe the admissions officer said for the question to why now, why not now? But this has been going on for 10 years. So why is FCPS not looking at enhancing the pipeline? Because if that was towards a pipeline 10 years, right, we could have produced an outstanding pipeline and we wouldn't be having these issues. Why do we keep going down, tweaking the admissions process that you rushed in 3 weeks, with lack of enough data? So I just want to understand, is this the right approach? And it shouldn't be the pipeline should be the first one to be considered. Thank you.
No, thank you, caller. And I absolutely agree with you about this pipeline issue. It is one prong of our three-prong strategy. I also want the community to know that we've just finished receiving a consultant report around our advanced academic programs. The school board received that report back really almost as COVID hit, and we are doing a follow-up work session next month around our advanced academic programs and what things we can do to really widen that pipeline. So it is a legitimate point that we need to work on the pipeline, and we do. But we have the fierce urgency of now, of this moment, for students that are in the pipeline, that are in the pool of TJ, that apply and then are screened out through the process of administering the standardized test. We want to capture, this process is not about a lottery for any kid. It's a merit lottery for kids already in the pool who have shown they are qualified to go to TJ. But we know and we will continue to work on really strengthening the pipeline. And yes, Fairfax County Public Schools needs to do better in developing that pipeline and bringing an equity lens so that everybody feels that at every school, their kid has access to the advanced math, the advanced science, the advanced programs, the after-school opportunities to have their kid accelerate and be prepared for admission to TJ. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
What's your question, caller?
Hello.
Yes, caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall. What's your question?
Hi. So I wanted to voice my support for the changes, and I would like to ask the superintendent to talk more about the let's center students and center learning. So what are going to be the benefits and outcomes for learning and students after these changes are implemented?
Well, one of the things that I think is very important for students is to be able to know that their dreams and hopes can be realized. We have portions of our student body that don't see themselves in TJ because they're not at TJ. We see regions of Fairfax County, schools that year after year, kids of promise who simply don't even want to apply because kids haven't gotten in year after year after year, while in other neighborhoods, dozens, hundreds of kids are getting in. We've got to make sure all of our kids of promise, of gifted ability, of merit, have the equal opportunity to apply and receive an opportunity to be at TJ. We have and will have, through this admissions change, the same rigorous curriculum, the same high expectations. And I met with the TJ faculty just this week. They are committed to working with us as we work to continue to enhance our work at TJ, to expand the student body and to capture talent that already exists in the pipeline. We have some of the finest teachers in Fairfax County, and of course some of the finest teachers in the country at TJ as well. They're committed to working with every child by name and by need, including those kids with those special gifts. And we know there are many of those kids with those gifts that are not making it through the process because of the application of a standardized test. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for calling in.
Can I add one thing to that, Dr. Brabrand?
Yes.
Something you said at the beginning, and I'm so pleased that, yes, the instruction will stay, the rigorous curriculum is there, but we must remember representation matters. And who our children see around them, who they learn with, will impact how they become as adults. And I think about, who do I want to drive next to on the Beltway? Who do I want to work with? Representation matters. And I'm so proud that we're having this conversation, and we will continue knowing that the pipeline and the curriculum are all pieces of this. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you. Let's take another phone call. Phone caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I just wanted to talk about your point about the pipeline equity. You know, the TJ demographics are indicative of the disparity within the county at the elementary and middle school levels, and I think the changes need to be made at those levels rather than in the admissions process at TJ. It's just a symptom. It's not the problem. And I think, you know, keeping the academic integrity of the school is great, but changing the admission process with a geographic random selection may end up hurting the very kids that the county is trying to help. So I really hope you guys can consider that. Thank you.
No, thank you, caller. I really appreciate that feedback. And I want to make 2 points here. One, we can widen the pipeline. And in fact, next month, the school board is going to look at the AAP consultants' recommendations for reform about how that pipeline can be widened so that more kids get access. Many of our kids deserve that access. All of our kids deserve that access to that rigorous curriculum. But in some cases, some schools are providing that at higher levels than others. I'm not proud to say that as superintendent, but it's true. And our community knows it, our school board knows it, and I commit to doing a better job to delivering that equity of access and opportunity for rigorous curriculum across all of our schools. But I do want to make one additional comment to your phone call. Even in our narrower pipeline right now that currently goes to TJ, there is diversity in that pipeline. There is economic diversity, there is racial diversity, there's even geographic diversity. But when we apply the exam, the semifinalist stage, we go from having 7 or 8% of our kids being economically disadvantaged to only like 1 or 2%. We go from having 3 or 4% of our kids being English language learners, second language of English, down to like 1%. We are squeezing out kids that are in the pool already. They still aren't equal to the percentages of our school system. TJ currently is only about 2% economically disadvantaged. We're almost 30% economically disadvantaged here in Fairfax County Public Schools. And I know that's something maybe many of you tonight hearing for the first time. Are you serious, Dr. Brabrand? That can't be true. Fairfax is the land of wealthy. It's a wealthy school district. All of our families have access to these things. They do not. They do not have access to test prep. We know there could be more access at elementary school to some additional after-school programs. Some of our PTAs don't have the money to support the schools to do that. We have diversity in the current pool that has the GPA, that does the problem-solving essay, that has the teacher recommendations. And then, in the last barrier, the last application, we give a test and they don't make it through. There is a better way. The merit lottery keeps those kids in the pool and gives them all a shot at getting in at TJ. And I want to make a final point. In our own high schools right now, we have high quality, rigorous math and science courses, engineering courses that our kids can take, do take, and should take, whether they get in TJ and decline or whether they choose to stay in their base school. And we need to do a better job of highlighting to our community the rich opportunities we have in our base schools and through our academies for kids to take STEM courses just like those that we have at TJ. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, I really, oppose the process. I wanted to add 2 points to this statement or this process. As the other caller stated that we are addressing the symptom rather than the problem. And to support that, if you look at the GT program, which is offered at the elementary school, which offers the math curriculum, and not a lot many kids are doing good there. And even kids are at GT layer at the elementary level, we are also doing the selection, right? And exam we are conducting. And you're not selecting the right things there too, and not kids are catching up. The second aspect is, in TJ test, you have testing aspect as just 1% of it. You have teacher recommendations and essays. There are a lot of other academic related stuff. They look at it. It is a holistic approach. So addressing the testing is really a foolish thing, which is not right.
Thank you, caller, for that feedback. And we recognize, I want to be clear tonight, the town hall is here to listen to you and to recognize the diversity of opinion. We're here to be inclusive and to hear opinions that don't support the TJ admissions process or ask us to go back and take a deeper look. We're taking all of this feedback, and it will help us as we inform the school board, as I said, at a work session next week and at my final presentation to the board in just a couple of weeks. And so thank you again for sharing that perspective. I truly appreciate it. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, welcome.
Hi, thanks for the call, or for taking my call.
Sure.
I would have to agree somewhat with caller. I feel, I like what you're doing here, but I feel at the end after a child has gotten through, based on merit, to then have it be based on luck or lottery, seems a little bit unfair. So I think that's the piece of feedback I'd like to give you. And then I also have another question about when would these changes take effect, if you wouldn't mind answering that.
Sure. Jeremy, could you share a little bit about when the changes would take place and the process for that?
Sure. So if approved and we move forward, those changes would actually take effect this year. The expectation would be that we would have a delayed application starting sometime around December, January timeframe, which would allow us the time to provide information out to the public in terms of when and how to apply. It would also allow them the time to submit the different portions of the merit, and then ultimately to be able to have the randomized selection. So this would happen late winter and into the early spring.
Jeremy, one of the questions the caller is making is about this issue, because there's two words in our proposal. It's a merit lottery. And some are maybe missing the merit part and focusing on the lottery. This is not a random selection of any kid in Fairfax County. This is a targeted selection among kids who apply and meet the criteria that we've talked about, including the 3.5 GPA in core academics, including successful completion of that problem-solving essay, and the student interest form that really gets at students' passions. I know you've done a lot of work reaching out to others to really help inform our process. Tell me a little bit about schools that have applied this merit lottery and what they have seen as they have applied this kind of process in their schools.
Sure. So when you look at some of the other schools that apply a merit-based process or a lottery-based process, actually a lot of them don't have the merit portions included. Some of them are just straight lotteries, and yet the same type of results, high academic success for their students. The process in which we're going through is kind of redefining that merit. We're taking away the test and we're using a lot of the same elements that we've had previously, and we're enhancing those aspects within the student information sheet. And those other schools that we've kind of looked at as kind of examples in which to go through, and there are a number of them, some of which we actually shared in the presentation.
I know one school, for example, Basis, which is very popular here in the Northern Virginia area, many families who want the very best for their children. Basis in Arizona is already doing the exact same process that we have. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Basis is a school that there's actually a number of schools in Arizona, a number of Basis schools in Arizona that function as a lottery. And in our review in terms of what they're doing, if I recall, and I'm not confusing it with one of the other schools, their process is pure lottery in terms of you're basically putting your name into what they want to do. And then different schools, some of theirs is a K through 12 lottery in terms of selecting in and out of. Another school in which we looked at was Racebeck, which is in Washington. Is a similar type of school in terms of it's focused on, it has a STEM focus. And they were able to produce a lottery based upon different elements. And there's a question about lottery, random selection. The point is, and I think it goes back to the point that you were making previously, is we're not just selecting students that are in algebra in 8th grade across Northern Virginia. We're looking at students that have passion, that have drive towards STEM, that have this ability to be able to share their reasons why, right? And those are the places where in a previous process, they never got a chance to share their whys. Why do they want to be at a school like TJ? Why is this a school for me? Because they were being removed from the process early on, and we weren't able to actually get a full kind of holistic approach and looking at it. And we're still maintaining that holistic approach through this process where we're reviewing them, and as they meet those criteria, as they go through, we're then placing them into that lottery process.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi.
Hi.
As a TJ alum, Springfield resident, and someone who's worked on TJ outreach in the past, I absolutely agree with you with what you've said about there being untapped talent in the pipeline, and strongly support this change, as I really believe it will enhance the excellence of the TJ education. My question is, what are you doing to ensure that the student information sheet under the new process selects for STEM passion and interest, but not privilege and prep? I've heard that historically the info sheet has included extracurriculars that can often be quite expensive and inaccessible to low-income students.
Jeremy, I'd like you to take that one. I know you've been working on this for so many years, and I want to just take a moment, too, to say, there are a lot of jobs in Fairfax County that people know about and some that they don't, and you have one of the most difficult jobs, I think, in our school system, to be the director of admissions and to have to handle the process and also all of these conversations. So I just want to thank you for your service. I know you've been at this for many years now, but talk a little bit to the caller's point about this process. How does it work, and have we really looked to make sure we have an equity lens on how that student information sheet is filled out and what we're doing about it?
We actually have. So looking at the previous process, and it's gone through some changes over time within the SIS, or the student information sheet as we call it, as well as the essay. The problem-solving essay is, as we showed a number of slides ago, actually is a new process. For many years, that was not a problem-solving essay. One of the things that I can share is that we produce and develop those problem-solving essays. We actually hire people in terms of being able to do that. We also work with different organizations to monitor and measure whether or not these questions have any type of bias in them that would put students at a disadvantage unintentionally. And so we go through that. The other piece that I will add is these questions change. We're not always giving the same question. We don't release our questions. Now, I'm not naive to not think that people don't have a general idea of what questions can be asked, but that's the reason why we're trying to ask different questions. But the other piece to that maybe people don't think about is we have anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 students that apply. Not nearly that many get to the semifinalist stage in the past, and that was part of the issue. But of those students, they come from a wide variety of backgrounds, a lot of different experiences. And when you're asking a question, if you're really specific on a particular question, it may put a certain group of students at a disadvantage. And so we try to provide questions that are broad enough that all questions work for all students.
What about the caller's point about, well, some kids are going to be able to rack up a list of extracurricular activities and maybe other students can't? How have you tried to work or mitigate some of that impact?
That's actually really good. And I'm sorry I didn't kind of touch on that. The bullet list as a response has been a non-starter for us.
What do you mean by bullet list, Mr. Sugar?
So what we actually do in some of our presentations in the fall with our students when we talk about what the process is, many times, and I know I personally have said this, is that listing off your accomplishments. It's one thing to say I've done something. It's another thing to actually share why. Why was that important? What did you gain out of it? What knowledge factor came out of this? And so when we go through an evaluation, our trained evaluators are looking for the whys. They're looking for the impact. They're looking for that passion as opposed to, here's a list of awards or activities that I've accomplished. That's great that you've done all that. It may not be as much. Something less, in this case, is actually more.
Leona, why is this an important question that this caller is asking about the student information sheet? Is this a fair question, or is this something, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, this is probably my favorite question we received all night. We need to think about, do our processes reward the right thing? And for a long time, we reward people that have privilege. And we're not saying privilege is a bad thing. Everyone has privileges. I have the privilege to sit here with you tonight. But when we begin to create systems in which people with certain privilege get more than others, we have an issue. And so we're not saying biases is going to go away immediately across FCPS. We're not naive. I like that word to say that. But we can take steps now. So I'm encouraged when I hear you say, when we do our outreach out to families and our students, we talk about all those extracurricular things might help you feel better in a roundabout way, but that's not the intent of this process. It will be important that we consider bias in this process. It will be important in any process when you're doing a selection process that we check our biases. And I'm proud that we are doing a lot of work internally in FCPS talking about bias, professional development around bias. We all hold them. It helps us make sense of information. It helps us take shortcuts. We must be conscious of our biases. So I thought that was a very important question, and I'm encouraged by our process and really thinking through this as well.
Thank you, Leona. Let's take another call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall. Hello, welcome. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall. Let's take a question at this moment. Why can't you make one of the responsibilities of middle school principals to ensure that at least X percentage of each school apply? Wouldn't that really help with some of that geographic issue? You know, Jeremy, let's talk about that. Why can't we make it one of the responsibilities, or do we already ask principals to do some of that work in addition to the outreach work you talked about that counselors do?
Sure. So one of the things we have to remember is that TJ is a choice school, meaning that students would want to go to a school that focuses on STEM, right? Science and technology, as it's been for many years. And I do think that many of our principals in our outreach and our engagement with the counselors, the STEM or the STEAM teachers, different folks within the buildings are actually encouraging, and we're trying to expand on that. And some of the things that we talked about in the work session last week was about that outreach, about what else can we do, how else can we focus on this, and maybe refining it. And we do make changes over time. We try to figure out where things have been successful, maybe where we haven't been as successful. And so, you know, those are things where principals actually assist us. But it's also the teachers in the classroom that are assisting us as well.
You know, one of the things about communication, Leona, that we're trying to do this year with TJ Admissions, but really with a lot of things in Fairfax County, is communication with our underrepresented families across a whole host of programs, partly by making sure that all of our communications are in their language. Can you talk a little bit about what we are doing and some new apps and applications that we have around TJ and other topics of interest in Fairfax County?
Absolutely. In order to be engaged, you have to be informed. And in order to be informed, you need to receive information in a language that matters for you. And so this year, we've been working in partnership, lots of great offices coming together to think about are we ensuring that our families have access? So a lot of our schools are using a new app called the Talking Points app. And whereas my
Talking Points app.
my own children's school use it. They're in elementary school in Fairfax, and it's great. I get text all day long, but their teacher can text in English, and the parent chooses their preference. Immediately you get it in the language of your choice.
Wow, so the teacher can text out to a parent in English in their language.
Yep.
And then the parent can receive it in the language of their home.
Absolutely.
Wow, Talking Points app. Is there a cost to that?
So it's a free app, and a lot of schools are using it as their whole school communication as well. And then also during the pandemic, there were many questions around return to school and even things like this about admissions to different programs. And so in addition to that, we have our phone line operators. We have 8 language lines. And we also put some fiscal backing into something we called the United Language Services, in which schools can call and get an interpreter right on the spot. Help me call this family. And so those are the kind of things that we will be partnering alongside TJ's admissions, other offices to say, are we reaching the families we want to reach? When we continue to have town halls, you've done a few with me in different languages to ensure that everyone gets information in the language they deserve and they prefer.
Well, thank you. And you know, Leona, you mentioned about doing them with you. I've done a couple in Spanish, and I'm excited to tell you that I'm working on doing some town halls this fall in Korean and Arabic. Stand by for my ability to speak in those languages, but I am a work in progress, and we're excited about connecting in that way with our community that we haven't done before. And I'm looking forward to that outreach on this topic and many others. Let's take an email actually at this time. Were there any considerations given to trying to identify a tier of kids who would be guaranteed admission because they're so exceptional in GPA and SIS? Jeremy, this really is a question that comes up, and then maybe Leona to dig into that question a bit more. But there are a lot of folks saying right now, look, Scott, Dr. Brabrand, this may be a nice idea about a merit lottery. We understand that we're missing some kids, but there's some kids, they've got to be in TJ. We know they're special. What is the best response to those families, to those folks who feel that this merit lottery process isn't allowing us to get that kid at the very, very top?
Well, I mean, we're opening up, in this process, we're opening up students who haven't had that chance, who we frequently get the student that has to be there. And that's actually putting out the question of, or assuming that there are students that have to be there and that the wrong students are getting there. And I think that's something that we have to challenge ourselves in terms of the way we look at this, is by whose, the description is the students that have to be at TJ. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is about the academics that we have at other schools, and we provide information, and we probably need to do a better job. But when we look at just the TJ admissions process, this is about opening up opportunities for students. This is about providing more students that opportunity to consider TJ as a high school option. We are not restricting their opportunity to get into TJ. We're not denying them an ability to go through this process. Quite frequently, in my role over the past years that I've been doing this, I get a lot of questions as students go through this process. Unfortunately, many of those students, based upon our numbers, ultimately don't get into TJ. And a lot of times there's the question of, but why? Why did my child not get in? How do I help answer this question for my child, who this is something that they've wanted? And there's a conversation with the family. There's a conversation sometimes with the student, and trying to help them understand that this isn't the end for them. Not getting into TJ doesn't mean they can't get into whatever college or university or go off to do something great. We have tremendous opportunities in Fairfax County and in our participating jurisdictions, not just in Fairfax, for those students to excel. And I think it's an important note that we're not eliminating options and possibilities for those students.
Leona, did you want to make a comment to that?
Wow, you said it perfectly. I would add that let's remember this is public school, and there's no such thing as this school for this group and this school for that group. We're not denying there are students that have specific needs, and I agree, we have opportunities across FCPS. This isn't about taking power away from someone. This is empowering more. And I think we need to hold on to that. is this isn't a removal of something, this is adding to. And we all sit better when we add to.
You know, I think on this one, because it is a big question, and I've tried to think about it and reflect on it too, this notion that there's kids that have to be in. To be honest, that first pool that we've always had, all of those kids in their mind, in our mind too, have to be in TJ. But we don't have the number of slots as we have the interest. We've already been doing a merit lottery, but we've called it a standardized test. Every one of those kids in that first pool had to be in TJ. They proved themselves with the GPA, with the problem-solving essay, with that questionnaire. But the test is where we decided who got in and who didn't. So I think it's also thinking about the question in a different sense, that all of those kids, in a sense, feel they have to be there. And they did before, but we let the final application of a test be the deciding factor. And is that the right way to really decide and have equity of access and opportunity? And I think what we're saying is, after years and years of doing it one way, it's time to find a better way to truly spot talent and give all of our community the opportunity to participate in a program like TJ. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi. My question, it relates to the GPA of 3.5, and you've already alluded to the fact that unfortunately, there's not equity among the schools across Fairfax County. I mean, let's be realistic. And a 3.5 at one school is not necessarily the same as a 3.5 at another school. So how are you going to, if that's your limit and the kids get in, how are you going to keep the academic standards associated with TJ and the rigor, and yet the last thing you want to do is have the kids get in and then start to feel like they're a failure and can't make it?
No, thank you very much. Absolutely. And one of the things I want you to know, again, we're going to have that student information sheet. We're going to have the problem-solving essay. And I believe we've been working with George Washington University in helping develop that problem-solving essay. We're going to make sure through those, in addition to the holistic review, that we have kids who are set up for success. One of the things we're working to do too, I'm working very closely with the principal of TJ, Ann Bonatalbus, to make sure that we continue to provide and enhance our supports for kids as they enter TJ, as they transition in their freshman year, into their sophomore year, junior year. Believe it or not, all kids at TJ need wraparound supports to be successful. Some of them may need academic supports. Some of them may need social, emotional supports. And we need to be honest with one another today that we've got to make sure we're creating the kind of culture in all of our schools where kids are truly doing the portrait of a graduate that includes being resilient individuals who have balanced lives and are having the appropriate academic and social emotional supports to succeed. And that's really, really important. And we're going to continue to work with the principal and faculty around how we can enhance the existing supports in the years ahead. Jeremy, did you have a comment you wanted to add?
Yeah, it's not as though this was something that we haven't been doing already at TJ. We've been providing supports. It's about identifying what those supports are and continuing to provide that, adding more, but we're not changing the curriculum. You know, there's a lot of fear. Change sometimes invokes that in people. Sometimes people are really excited about change. But what we want to make sure is that we're not changing the program of studies. That program of studies has been there for many, many years. We still have students that at the bottom end or at the low end in terms of minimums, we have students who are enrolled in Algebra 1 currently that are going to TJ. So there's some question about, is Algebra 1 the right place? So we currently have students that are going to TJ coming out of Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And so we're able to, and they are tremendously successful at TJ as well. And so I think that's important to note that these are things that we've been doing, and we're looking at enhancing and making sure that we provide all the proper supports.
You know, Jeremy, a deeper conversation that we need to have in our community, and I recognize I've probably not as superintendent helped lead that, and I want to. Acceleration doesn't necessarily mean additional depth of understanding. We've been on a push to accelerate our students sometimes. What we really need to be sure we're doing with our advanced academic programs is deepening student knowledge, deepening student critical thinking, the ability to problem solve, deepening portrait of a graduate attributes, not just advancing kids through content. Advancing kids through content, being able to test prep a test, isn't the same thing as creating a deep, reflective learner that can synthesize information, collaborate, problem solve. Those are the things. And it's something we said just earlier tonight. The problems of the world today in science, technology, medicine, engineering are not going to be answered by the person who's the best test taker in a standardized test. If the standardized test approach right now could help us in the world we're in, we'd be using it. But the answers today are not as simple as A, B, C, or none of the above. It really is out-of-the-box thinking, creative thinking that requires a holistic review, which is what you're putting in, and not relying on a test to be that decision maker for TJ Admissions. Let's take another call. Phone caller, welcome to TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Thank you for taking my call. I have 2 points. First of all, why are you rushing through a proposal presented by you and Jeremy, which is based on wrong data? Data scientists published a report just today based on publicly available data that the biggest beneficiaries of this proposal will be whites, whose enrollments will go up from 18 to 45%, and that of Asians will drop from 73 to 33%. Many parents are wondering if that is the desired outcome. And secondly, why not try this lottery proposal with another FCPS high school which needs improvement and attempt to create another TJ rather than destroy meritocracy in the name of identity politics? This is a really bad proposal opposed by thousands of families in your community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, caller, for your feedback. And I recognize we have received comments around the TJ Admissions proposal that are not favorable. And we know there's strong feelings on both sides. I wouldn't say that it has been a rushed process. We have been grappling with the TJ process over many years through many school boards and many superintendents. In fact, over 20 years ago, Dr. Daniel Dominich, who was superintendent here when I was a younger man, really also looked at TJ. He talked about having a gifted and talented education for every child. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've been trying to make adjustments, and we have not created the outcomes that we need for our kids and our community. There is no way in over 180,000 kids that we would have not enough African American students to be able to report publicly. There's no way that's a true statement. Or economically disadvantaged kids who are already available in the first pool that get beat out because the test is the last piece, and some people can spend thousands and thousands of dollars and some not a drop. There is a better way. I'll be glad to look, and we'll be glad to look at any information that's out there about how the model will look. We've been doing our own modeling, in fact, and sharing it with the school board, and we're certainly willing to look at other models that ask other questions. We share with you a desire to maintain the high standards of TJ and to maintain fidelity and transparency around our processes. So we welcome the continued conversation. We welcome diverse viewpoints, and we know that they exist. And we're going to continue to want to bring everybody in to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and we're going to continue to share, even as we move forward, all of the results of our processes. So thank you, caller. Let's take another call to the TJ Admissions Town Hall. Caller, welcome.
Hello. I wanted to voice my opinion, and I wanted to simply state as a first-generation immigrant here that I highly oppose this merit-based program. I highly believe that you're absolutely right. Each child does deserve a high-quality and rigorous education, but it doesn't have to into a lottery system. If you look at the majority of the people who attend TJ, there are a lot of people who are already immigrants They are not, I don't want to use white, but that's what I'm going to say. My parents, they came here. My father passed away. My mom was a single mom. I could not afford to pay thousands of dollars to obtain prep for tests. But we live in this great country of America. There are resources out there, and if you really put your mind to it, you can obtain those. I went to the public library. I checked out books. I used a pamphlet that they provided me, and I used that. I believe that if you use a quota system, you're going to punish children based on race and national origin, and you're not going to solve the problem. I believe what we can do is we can expand opportunities to their elementary schools, access to gifted programming, and parent outreach and education. I think if you impose the racial quotas, it's not going to educate a single child, or it's not going to achieve fairness to anybody. Every student who is at TJ has worked very, very hard. And the gentleman, I apologize, he had mentioned something that in the state of Arizona, there are some schools who do use quota. If you look at the state of Arizona, public education-wise, their rate is 49 out of 50. So that's a really bad example to use. And I agree with the previous caller. We should not rush through this at all. We should look at all points of view. And I just wanted to state my opinion again. I'm from a first generation. I'm here. So
thank you, caller.
From that.
Thank you, caller. First of all, thank you for sharing your story. We need to hear all of our stories in our community. What you did and your accomplishments through the challenges that you had are to be commended. We really want that same opportunity for kids who face similar challenges to have the same opportunities that you're talking about that you did. And I do want to be clear. This proposal for TJ admissions merit lottery is not a quota system. The reality is, even with the merit lottery, our TJ admissions class will look nothing like our total demographics for Fairfax County Public Schools. It represents the talent and merit already in the pool, which unfortunately is still not equal to the full diversity of our system. This is about merit that already exists in the TJ pool year after year after year, but the final decision maker on who gets in and who doesn't is a standardized admissions test where you can pay to play and get a good score that lets you get in versus some who cannot. And I believe in this moment, as thousands of colleges walk away from a standardized admissions test, partially because of the pandemic, but more importantly because there is more to a kid than a test score. Isn't it time for TJ to embrace that same holistic philosophy? We've had an holistic process at the beginning, but we apply the testing process at the end. It's time to drop the test and focus more on that holistic admission process so that anybody, as we apply that merit lottery, everybody is of merit. Everybody deserves to get in, and this is the most equitable opportunity of access process to have. So thank you, caller, again. Let's take another phone call. Caller, welcome to the TJ Admissions Town Hall.
Hi, Dr. Brabrand. Thank you for having me. I am an African-American alum of TJ who firsthand saw the negative effects of having a lack of representation from a personal standpoint in terms of feeling like an outsider and constantly having to prove myself despite being as qualified as others, and also secondhand observing the lack of real-world skills and ability to work with a diverse group of people that many people graduated with. So I think your proposed admissions process is great in terms of improving representation and creating a more inclusive environment for not only underrepresented minorities, but also immigrant families, lower income families, and pretty much every demographic component of Fairfax County. I know you mentioned increasing academic support and having programs in place to make sure that students perform well and have kind of a support system in place, but I wanted to know still, for those kids who get into TJ that might be underrepresented minorities or made to feel like outsiders, how are you partnering with the administration to make sure that these people have a more positive experience so that we can continue to speak well about TJ and continue to increase the pipeline and the number of minorities who apply?
Well, thank you very much for that call, caller. And first of all, thank you for sharing again your truth and your story and your experience. I have heard too many of these same stories from TJ students of color who've experienced or had an experience that has not been the kind of Fairfax County Public Schools experience that we wanted. To be honest, all this discussion about how we can better support our students once they're at TJ needs to be the topic of an additional town hall where I can bring Principal Bonatavas and maybe some of the faculty to talk about what we're doing to support all of our students at TJ now and moving forward. And again, thank you for your call. I do want to say, Leona, thank you for being here this evening, and Jeremy, thank you for this very important conversation tonight. We are going to continue to have conversations with our school board, with you. We're going to find additional ways to connect with the community. Remember, you can still share your comments at tjcomments@fcps.edu. And we want to continue to hear your voice. As I shared, we'll be having a work session next week with the school board. And we'll be having another presentation a few weeks later, or 2 weeks later, with the school board as well. I do want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I appreciate your involvement and your investment in Fairfax County Public Schools. And I want you to know, whether you're for our proposal or you disagree strongly with our proposal, we value your input, we respect your perspective, and we need to continue to come together on this issue and others to be able to create a climate where we can respectfully share our differences and continue to move forward to make FCPS an even stronger school system and to make Fairfax County an even stronger community. Thanks again for your time this evening. We'll see all of you really soon. Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.